Joining me now, it's Republican Senate candidate from our great state of Ohio. It's Bernie Moreno. Bernie, great to have you back on. I'm sorry I missed you. What was it, last weekend before when you were in town for the Polaris Security Summit? I love Morgan Ortagus. I would have loved to see you, but I had a conflict that night.
Yeah, she was great. She had Tom Homan, who you remember endorsed me in the primary. Yeah. Great guy. God willing, we're going to win this election. He'll be back in charge of ICE.
Right.
And we'll get this country back in shape. I mean, the reality is, Scott, we should have legal immigrants to this country. That's a no-brainer. People like me who learn English, assimilate to the culture, don't take government benefits, are here not to lower wages but to add to our economy. But we have to have a zero tolerance for illegal immigration. And with this administration, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, with the full throttled support of Sherrod Brown, they have encouraged millions, 10 to 12 million illegals to come into this country. They want to give them Social Security. They want to make them citizens. Sherrod Brown voted to give them Medicare. They've absolutely destroyed the VA. The VA is having to process all these medical claims, which, by the way, Scott, infuriates me as an American citizen who pays taxes. I pay about $1,800 a month for my health premium with a deductible and a copay. These illegals don't have to worry about being in network, don't have a deductible, don't have a copay, and don't even pay a premium. That's all thanks to Sherrod Brown.
Wow. It's a good deal, I guess. Maybe can I take up residency in Mexico and then come back? I don't know how that works. But you're right. Tom Homan has some great ideas on securing our border. Again, I had Tom on the show yesterday talking about some of those things. And today, Donald Trump is actually visiting the border, counter-programming to the DNC to point out Kamala Harris's failures as border czar. And we've talked about the 8 million illegals that have crossed since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took office, and nothing's been done about it. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris could fix the problem just by going back to some of the policies that worked under Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Day one, Joe Biden reversed 94 executive orders. Remind Sherrod Brown that he had control of the Senate. They had the House and they had the White House. They could have put those immigration policies into law. They failed to do so. And Joe Biden reversed those executive orders, 94 of them, like I just said. That's what caused, now it's, by the way, they're estimating to be 10 to 12 million now, 800,000 children that they cannot account for, that have no idea where they went. It's costing this country $500 billion a year. Massively more than we pay taking care of veterans, which is grotesque. And of course, now, Sherrod Brown wants us to believe that he is the tough on immigration guy. It's a total fraud. It's a total fraud. But you know what's sad, Scott? I wish these guys would just run on their policies and their beliefs. Where they said to the American people, hey, this is what we believe in. This is why we voted this way, and just be honest. Instead, every election cycle, they pretend to be moderates. They pretend to be in the center to get elected. Of course, they sometimes fool some voters and then end up, of course, voting in the most extreme way possible.
I want to get back to that point in just a second. We're talking to Bernie Moreno here on the Scott Sands Show. He's running for U.S. Senate here in Ohio, BernieMoreno.com. At the DNC, they've been talking about how Donald Trump killed the so-called bipartisan immigration deal, which was a horrible deal. And really, I can't believe Senator Langford even negotiated such a bad deal. But if they were truly sincere about tackling the border crisis through legislation, they could have taken up H.R. 2 at any point, which has been sitting dead in the Senate under Chuck Schumer for, 3 years, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sherrod Brown brags about that. By the way, President Trump didn't kill that bill. The words in that bill killed the bill. It allowed 5,000 illegals a day, which is insane. The number should be zero. We shouldn't allow any illegal immigration in this country. It funded these NGOs who have been trafficking humans across our border. And again, if the Democrats wanted to fix it, reinstate the 94 executive orders that they deleted day one from President Trump. So it's just a total farce and a facade. The media, of course, covers for the Democrats, doesn't actually expose them for what they are. And it's very frustrating because to see these people who are these far left extremists bend over backwards to pretend they're moderate during, of course, only election season is just so dishonest and despicable.
We're talking to Bernie Moreno. Your opponent, Sherrod Brown, has not been at the DNC this week. And instead, and which is so funny because every 6 years he tries to portray himself as this moderate man of the people when really we've seen his voting record. He votes 100% of the time with the most liberal senator of all time, Kamala Harris, now the Biden-Harris administration. And I hope that the voters of Ohio have caught on to the scam that he tries to portray every 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, the worst part, by the way, just in my mind, is he lied about it, Scott. So they asked him a question, will you be at the DNC? He said, no, he often misses conventions. That's objectively not true. He's been to every convention since 1994. So the guy lies about little things like that because he also lies about everything from his persona. This is a guy who went to Yale University full pay.
I thought going to Yale was a bad thing. Senator J.D. Vance went to Yale, and all of a sudden that's a crime.
Well, by the way, what Joyce Beatty, who, of course, you're referring to her speech, missed is that J.D. went from high school to Ohio State to the Marines, started a successful business, and then went to Yale. Sherrod Brown grew up extremely wealthy, never worked, spent time going to country club with his dad in Mansfield, then went to Yale full pay, and then, of course, goes right into elected office. When was that, Scott? When Richard Nixon was in the White House.
Yeah, it's been a while, and as you and I have talked about, I have a problem with these career politicians. You've pledged not to become that guy, so I'm going to hold you to that when you win.
Well, Scott, just to be clear, you've met my wife. She's all in for me. She's a warrior. She's amazing. I hit the lottery when I married her 35 years ago, but she has said 2 terms or third term with a second wife. So this is definitely about term limits.
BernieMoreno.com. Bernie, back to the DNC, just as we continue to cover the Democratic National Convention. Shawn Fain, the head of the UAW, who I happened to meet at Toledo Jeep Fest a couple of weeks ago, and he promised to come on my show, has yet to return any of my calls or emails, but that's beside the point. At the DNC, talked about, threatened a strike, which would dramatically, as we saw last September, hurt the workers here in Toledo at the Stellantis at the Jeep plant and other automotive workers across the swing state of Michigan. And in a tough economy, at a time where Stellantis profits are down like 50%, that's probably not the best thing to threaten in front of a bunch of voters watching you on TV.
Well, Shawn Fain continues a tradition of UAW leadership, which is horribly corrupt. They are so out of touch with their members. These UAW workers understand that what we're going to do is we're going to save the auto industry here in America. We're going to get rid of these EV mandates, these EV incentives. We're going to make certain that we don't allow Chinese cars to come into America. We're going to encourage car companies to build more facilities here in the U.S. Under Sherrod Brown, we saw 200,000 manufacturing jobs leave just the state of Ohio. He's quite literally the grim reaper of the auto industry in America. And so what we have to do is provide them a good regulatory environment, good tax policy. I'm going to be meeting with these CEOs, and who do you think they'd rather hear from, me or Sherrod Brown, in terms of why they should invest in Ohio? Sherrod Brown repels these CEOs. They can't stand him for good reason. The sad part is the UAW members are great people. They deserve good leaders. Instead, what they have is wannabe politician hacks that all they want to do is get their 2 minutes of fame, their big fat salary, and even that's not enough, and they end up being corrupt and steal money from their union. It's a disgrace.
So as we talk about the automotive industry, you have some experience dealing with cars. So I think this is something you can speak about intelligently and with some credibility.
And I also worked for General Motors Saturn division when I was a kid. We had a great relationship between management and union. Actually, completely reimagined that relationship. I value the UAW members very much. I think we're going to win the majority of the membership. But like I said earlier, Scott, they deserve good leaders, not corrupt leaders that are in it for themselves. At the end of the day, these union bosses have all been in the pockets of the Democrats. It's this money laundering operation where they steal their union members' dues and give it to Democrat politicians that they don't even agree with.
We're talking to Bernie Moreno. He's running for U.S. Senate here in Ohio, BernieMoreno.com. Bernie, you're continuing your statewide tour. You're on a bus. You're traveling around the state. You're also on television now with a new TV campaign. By the way, radio also reaches a lot of voters. Just wanted to throw that out, that a radio campaign couldn't hurt either. Just
we're gonna be on radio. We're gonna be on digital. We unleashed a can of whoop ass on Sherrod Brown on Tuesday. We will absolutely highlight this guy's record. We're not gonna make it personal, Scott. I don't believe in that. I think the voters deserve a real debate on policy. Of course, Sherrod Brown won't follow suit because all he's got is lame personal attacks towards me, which is pretty sad for an old man that's been around forever. But, that's who he is. He's old, fake, and tired. And what we're going to do is show his record. This is what he voted for. This is why it's bad for Ohio. This is what I'm about. This is what I'm going to go down and do. And again, it's about service, Scott. These career politicians, these people who just go there and want to die in office is terrible. And Sherrod Brown, by the way, is never going to be on your show. He doesn't do open press conferences.
No,
his events are extraordinarily managed.
You know what's funny is he used to come on my show every month or so, and since you started running against him, he refuses to take my calls anymore.
Well, he won't. Don't feel alone. He won't do that to any reporter, because what he won't do is answer open-ended questions. He wants to go into a very scripted situation. He has events that are top secret until like 5 minutes before the event. You have to be screened by Secret Service to walk into one of his events, because he's so afraid that a real voter is going to ask him the actual questions. Why did you vote to give Social Security to illegals? Why did you vote to strip $300 million from Medicare to give it to EV incentives? Why would you make somebody's grandmother pay more for medication so some millionaire can buy an electric car? He has to answer these questions, but he won't. And of course, the media that he does talk to know the deal. They know they're not allowed to ask him these tough questions. And so that's the way he wants to manage his campaign. If you watch some of the times that he's off script, I actually worry that maybe he's in a Joe Biden situation, because he mixes up his words. He loses his train of thought. It's, again, we shouldn't have politicians that want to die in office, Scott. This is about going there to serving and coming home.
Bernie Moreno here on the Scott Sands Show. Quickly, to wrap things up, the rumors are tomorrow RFK Jr. will endorse Trump-Vance. He's not on the ticket here in Ohio, but does that shake up the electoral math at all, in your opinion?
Well, it just shows that it's basically common sense versus lunacy. This is not Democrat versus Republican in this election. This is genuine common sense, American values versus complete lunacy. This is a question of, do you want America to be like America, or do you want America to be like Venezuela? If you elect Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and Sherrod Brown, this country will go off the cliff. And what happened in Venezuela will happen here in the United States. That's why I'm running, Scott. I will not watch this country go downhill like that without giving it everything I've got to prevent it.
He's the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate here in Ohio, Bernie Moreno. Go to BernieMoreno.com. Also follow him on Twitter, on X, at Bernie Moreno. And Bernie, I am back on Twitter and X after 3 years after being hacked. So you need to follow me back there as well at Scott Sands Media.
I just did that this morning. Welcome back.
I know. It's good to be back. It was my favorite platform, so I've missed it. Bernie, it's great to have you back on. We'll talk, I'm sure, again soon.
Thank you, Scott.